And, they tell us that that is dangerous. I mean, who are we to argue with God? I remember when Sophie Loren,
Yeah.
she, very late in life, she had, I think it was
Right.
her second son, or her first child, after trying for so long. And, of course, she had the means to make sure that she was administered the right
Certainly.
treatment. But for the rest of us who don't have that type of economic standing, is it really as dangerous as we are told
I've
that
read
it is?
articles that indicate it was not. Many times they say
Mhm.
you're high risk. And of course I think
Mhm.
frequently they'll say for let's say a handicapped child.
Yeah.
But I had seen a more recent study which said that's not necessarily true if the mother is in fairly good health and maintains herself with good health care during pregnancy.
Yeah. If I may just go back to the book, you have subtitled this book "A Prophetic Illumination." Would you sort of tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, we live in very intriguing times
Mhm.
when the signs of the times read like the book of Revelation. For example, many of the churches have experienced a massive loss of faith. And at the same time, the smart debit card has been introduced to replace cash. For example, in New York City, the smart card is being introduced. And it contains biological identification material like thumbprints, retinal scans. And in
Mhm.
some cases, the card's transponder chip is being used by federal employees. For example, in the military, it's been implanted in some military service.
Okay.
For example, the Navy to track servicemen in case they get
Mhm.
lost or are prisoners of war, and even welfare recipients like children who are eligible for school lunches have it implanted, for example, in the state of Montana.
Mhm. Mhm. You mentioned the retinal scanning.
Yes.
It's always been interesting to me when you read suspense novels or you see uh, offerings through the entertainment media of thrillers and so on and so forth, and people disguise themselves. But the one thing that they never seem to be able to change is the eyes. And if people are smart and
Right.
so, well, you look different. If you focus on the eyes, no two people have the same pair of eyes.
Right.
You can change the face, but it's very hard
Mm-hmm.
to change those eyes, even
That's
with
true.
contact lenses. You at the top of the program, you mentioned, in addition to the abortion, assisted suicide. In your opinion, is assisted suicide being abused?
Well, quite definitely. For example, in Holland, which hasn't even legalized assisted suicide
Mhm.
yet, about 1,000 patients a year die involuntarily. And in the novel, Daniel Shaw changes his mind about assisted suicide, but the doctor pushes the button.
Mhm.
So this is what's happening in societies where it's really not legal. But for example, we find the American media is redefining fetal treatment now in terms of the level of intellectual functioning, or let's say level of
Mhm.
awareness. For example, we had a patient recently had denial of food and drink because they said he was comatose, but in fact, I know of his personal chaplain, and he said the man had a level of awareness. He could look at people, follow them with their eyes, respond in different
Mhm.
ways with looks,
Yeah.
and nods, but he was considered a vegetable. And so there's a whole redefinition on the basis of mental awareness, not physical functioning. But the church currently teaches that food and drink, even when medically assisted, for example, by tubes, is ordinary, not extraordinary care. And of course, all of us need food and drink
Mhm.
just to survive. But pro-life families and providers can evoke the federal and state conscience clause to prevent any kind of religious discrimination
Mhm.
in this case, and even in deference to the sanctity of human life.
Yeah. Yeah. In the little time we have left, how can the audience help?
Well, specifically, there's a new law before the Congress called the Lethal Drug Abuse Prevention Act.
Mhm.
And basically what it does is it indicates that assisted suicide is not a legitimate medical purpose for controlled substances. And at the same time, it distinguishes between assisted suicide and legitimate therapeutic use of drugs to control pain,
Mhm.
even when, let's say, aggressive pain control could hasten death. And this protects, I would say, the patients in terms of advanced pain management, but also protects the providers. But I would encourage the studio audience to contact their representatives and senators, and even specifically Representative Hyde and Senator Nichols, regarding support for the Lethal Drug Abuse Prevention Act.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, how can one get a copy of Mother of All Life?
Yes, you can receive a copy by contacting Chalet Magnificat. And that's Post Office Box 1012, Front Royal, Virginia. Let me repeat that one more time. It's Chalet Magnificat, Post Office Box 1012, Front Royal, Virginia. And we merely ask for a donation from our donors. It will be a gift to our donors. And it will be our pleasure to share this book with them, and certainly would appreciate your comments.
Okay. And I see here you said all donations will support a family maternity home or a vulnerable family for vulnerable families below the poverty line, or pregnant women and women with small children.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That is beautiful. Now, we're doing things in reverse here. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. We know that you're a nurse practitioner, and what was the inspiration for a Mother of All Life?
Well, after being in the profession more than 17 years, I think there were so many scenarios that occurred in my life that I just felt the best way to share these stories were to weave them together in a novel. And it's basically a patchwork of redemption parables, you know,
Mm-hmm.
which of course contain pro-life themes because of the nature of my work.
Yeah. Now, what is the goal of Mother of All Life, and what is it that you would like to achieve through this?
To emphasize the sanctity of human life
Mm-hmm.
through all stages, from the unborn to the elderly to the disabled.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And do you are you going to be going out on a speaking tour, or are you already on a speaking tour promoting Mother of All Life and the concept?
Actually, this is my first time to present it,
Mm-hmm.
but we do have a website in which you're welcome certainly to tap that through your internet. It's catholic.org/market/life if you would like to get more information about Chalet Magnificat.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I see you're on the credits here. The cover was designed by Julie Dornbos.
Yes.
And the cover designed by Marla Hurtado.
Yes.
Yes.
They did a
And
beautiful
I don't know if we could pick up the colors on this book. There's a front of the book, and it has the Madonna.
Actually, this is the Virgin of Guadalupe, and
Okay.
notice surrounding her are roses. If you know the story of the Virgin of Guadalupe, that she appeared to an Indian in the middle of winter, and ironically, she picked some roses and put them in his cloak, and when he took it to the Archbishop to relay her message, basically the image of the Virgin of Guadalupe was right embedded in his coat. And I think the significance, of course, is she was the first pregnant Madonna, which basically presented a turning point in stopping, or shall we say, in reversing the tendency of the Mexican Indians at that time to use human sacrifice.
Thank you, Judith Pearl. I thank you for being our guest this evening, and I wish you good luck with this book, and I hope it achieves what you intended to achieve. And if you can reach one person, you will have done good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's our show for this evening, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.